The resurrection of Christ. Does the resurrection of Christ make sense in modern times? In the first centuries of Christianity, during the era of martyrdom, martyrs were certain that resurrection is the final step, not death. They believed they'll resurrect as opposed to dying, mirroring what happened with Jesus. As Paul states, "For if we have been united with him in a death like his, we shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his." If the first generations of Christians were so sure of the resurrection to the extent that they were able to give up their lives for such a belief, can we, after more than 2,000 years living in a skeptic world, have the same confidence that Jesus was resurrected? Let us examine the facts we know about the resurrection and examine the alternative scenarios. 1. The resurrection of Jesus was based on many first-hand witnesses. Peter, the apostle, in his speech to the Israelites, mentioned that they've witnessed Jesus' resurrection, saying, "You killed the author of life, whom God raised from the dead. To this we are witnesses." The most important criterion for choosing a disciple instead of Judas was that he should have witnessed Jesus' resurrection. As written in Acts 1:21-22, "So one of the men who have accompanied us during all the time that the Lord Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John until the day when he was taken up from us, one of these men must become with us a witness to his resurrection." Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, mentioned in the popular passage called the Testimonium Flavianum, meaning the testimony of Flavius Josephus, which is found in Book 18, Chapter 3 of his book, The Antiquities, that Jesus' followers have reported his resurrection, stating, "And those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion and that he was alive." Number 2. The sudden emotional change of the disciples. John Stott, the theologian and author, wrote, "Perhaps the transformation of the disciples of Jesus is the greatest evidence of all for the resurrection." Number 3. There is no materialistic gain in proclaiming the resurrection. The apostles suffered for their faith. Paul recounts the suffering he endured, which included being whipped, beaten, stoned, shipwrecked, near starvation, and in danger from various people and places in 2 Corinthians 6 and 2 Corinthians 11. Speaking for the apostles, after being threatened by the religious leaders, Peter and John say, "For we cannot but speak of what we have seen and heard," in Acts 4:20. First Christians gave up every source of security for themselves and their families. They left their homes because of the persecution at the hands of the Roman and Jewish leaders and scattered throughout many regions. They abandoned any possibility of a comfortable and secure life. The apostles were then thrown in prison and beaten for their faith, and even still they continued to preach and teach the Gospels, as seen in Acts 5:17-42. In short, there are no earthly motives for proclaiming their faith, and the only reason for enduring such sufferings is that they knew it was true. Number 4. The martyrdom of the apostles. Michael Lacana, the historian and apologist, captures the key point in his book, The Resurrection of Jesus, a new historiographical approach, stating, "After Jesus' death, the disciples endured persecution, and a number of them experienced martyrdom. The strength of their conviction indicates that they were not just claiming Jesus had appeared to them after rising from the dead. They really believed it. They willingly endangered themselves by publicly proclaiming the risen Christ." So the question is, what kind of people would give up their lives for something they're skeptical about?